Top 15 female wrestlers who could be surprise entrants in the Women's Royal Rumble.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
15.
Brie Bella. Brie Bella technically retired from WWE following her win at WrestleMania 32 last year, because her husband Daniel Bryan had been forced to retire a few months earlier, and the two wanted to focus on creating a family. Bryan was then brought back to WWE as the general manager of SmackDown Live, and Brie announced that they were expecting their first child, a daughter who was born earlier this year. Brie has been talking about making an in-ring return for the past few months as part of Total Divas, and is working hard to try and get back into shape. It seems that both Brie and Nikki have the same goal when it comes to their wrestling career, and they want to return to the company together. Since Bryan's contract with WWE doesn't run out until next year, it is entirely feasible that Brie would be a surprise entrant next month.
14.
Beth Phoenix. Beth Phoenix is a former women's champion and one of only 3 women to have been able to take part in the male version of the Royal Rumble over the past 3 decades. Beth was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame last year, and looks like she is still in fantastic shape, which could mean that she would be open to returning to be part of this match. Beth is no stranger to making history, and would definitely want to be part of one of the most historic milestones that the women of WWE have been able to achieve throughout this women's evolution, especially since Beth is one of the women who has been credited for her part in pushing the women's division forward, when she was seen as the most dominant female wrestler on the roster. Many fans would love to see her given the opportunity to take part in the first ever Women's Royal Rumble match.
13.
AJ Lee. AJ Lee was someone who did things her way, always. She was the longest reigning Divas champion at 295 days before Nikki Bella broke her record, and has gone on to write a best-selling book that was recently reported to be being adapted into a TV series. AJ will never forget where she came from, though, and the fans that supported her throughout, but this might not be the only thing standing in AJ's way. AJ was reported to have an issue with her back after the years of wrestling, which could be the reason why she hasn't stepped into a wrestling ring since her retirement back in 2015. But to return and maybe only have to do a few minutes in the ring without taking bumps, it is thought that, if AJ can get past the issues that she had backstage during her time in WWE, then her fans would love to see her make a cameo appearance. 12. Nikki Cross. Before Nikki Cross came to NXT, and was seen as one of the most dangerous female wrestlers on the roster, she was already a popular star all over the world, because of her work on the independent circuit. Nikki has proved what she can do in the ring, and the only reason she seems to be stuck in NXT right now is because she is still part of Sanity. It wouldn't be a promotion to the main roster, but it would be a way for Nikki to show fans of the main roster what she was capable of doing, and they would then realize that she belongs at a much higher level. There is no doubting the fact that Nikki will be on the main roster before the end of 2018, but it would be fantastic for her to be given the opportunity to show off her skills in a match of this kind.
11.
Caitlyn. Caitlyn won the only ever all-female episode of NXT, and is a former Divas champion, but that didn't stop the former star from asking for her release from the company back in 2014. Kaitlyn has since become the coup of her own company, battled through a nasty divorce, and managed to continue to pursue a career in bodybuilding. Many fans have already noticed the fact that Caitlyn is seemingly in much better shape now than she was when she was part of WWE. Even though WWE ran out of ideas for Caitlyn, which was one of the main reasons for her departure, she would have to be hoping that she gets the call to return in this match. After all, there will only ever be one first Women's Royal Rumble match, so there will be many current and former female wrestlers fighting it out to ensure that they will be a part of it.
10.
10. Eve Torres. Eve Torres won the Diva Search back in 2007 and was one of only a handful of women to come through the competition and go on to make an impact in WWE. As a former Divas champion, Eve learned the ropes quite fast, but opted to walk away from WWE back in 2013 to focus on other ventures in her life. Eve has since returned to WWE and has been working as an ambassador for the company ever since 2014. There have been rumors about Eve returning to the company for a number of years now, and as a self-defense instructor, it seems that she has remained in good enough shape to ensure that WWE could come calling one day. Eve is a wrestler who was popular with the WWE universe a few years ago, and many fans would love to see back in the ring just one more time.
9.
9. Peyton, Royce and Billie Kay. Peyton, Royce and Billie Kay won Breakout Stars of the Year on NXT back in 2016, and have been the standout female wrestlers on the roster for the past few years. It was thought that the only reason that Royce and Kay weren't promoted recently along with the likes of Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan was because WWE had a much bigger plan for them. The bigger plan could be for Peyton and Billie to become an integral part of the Women's Royal Rumble match, where both women will be able to show the ability and skill that has allowed them to become two of the most popular stars. Whether it is just one of them, or both of them who will be part of the historic match, the NXT universe would love to see their brand represented at one of the biggest WWE events of the year.
8.
8. Nikki Bella. Technically, Nikki Bella is still part of the WWE roster, even though she has been on hiatus healing from a neck injury ever since WrestleMania, where she became John Cena's fiancée. Nikki has shown that she is still able to move around the ring and take bumps on episodes of Total Divas, which means that if WWE comes calling, then she would definitely want to take part. Nikki is someone that WWE look at as a person who has spearheaded the women's revolution ever since it began, and the fact that she has missed out on so many other historic moments over the past few years means that it's almost a certainty that Nikki will be making a surprise return on January 28th. Nikki has developed a huge fan base over the past decade that she's worked for the company, and they will be happy that she has finally returned to the ring.
7.
7. Kelly Kelly. Kelly Kelly is another woman who can claim that she's a former Divas champion after coming to WWE as a model and being able to adapt to her surroundings to become a popular star when it comes to the WWE universe. Kelly was released from her WWE contract back in 2012 and stated that she has plans to be a model. Over the past few years, she has become known for being part of popular show Wags while she was dating and married to Sheldon Sauray, but the couple recently announced their divorce, which could mean that Kelly could be set to make her return to the company that first made her famous. It would be fantastic for her to make a return, even if it is just a one-off. The difference between the women's division of Kelly's day and the one right now would be easy to tell if she was put up against any of the women in the locker room right now.
6.
6. Emma. Despite all the legends that could be part of this match, and all the NXT call-ups that WWE could make, there is no doubt in anyone's mind that Emma's inclusion in the match would be the one that would blow the roof off the place. Many of the WWE universe forget that it was technically Emma who was part of the first ever match for the NXT Women's Championship, where she was defeated by Paige. The WWE Universe only remember Paige's win, and what this then catapulted her into, but Emma was by her side throughout this, and was never given the same opportunities. Emma deserves to be a part of this match, and a part of history more than any other female wrestler that WWE currently employs, and hopefully WWE can see that too, and allows the former NXT star to return just for one night as a way to make the fans happy.
5.
5. Stacy Keibler. Stacy Keibler is perhaps the only woman from her era who would be able to make a return to WWE if the company put in a call. Famed for her long 42-inch legs, Keibler was always a popular star amongst the WWE universe, but lacked any kind of ability in the ring, since she was mostly used as a valet. Keibler has since gone on to appear on Dancing with the Stars as well as being part of a high-profile relationship with Hollywood star George Clooney over the past few years, so she seems to have done well for herself. She officially left the company back in 2006 to pursue other ventures, and became a mother for the first time back in 2014, but it seems that the change to make history with 29 other women could be something that Stacy would be open to returning to the company for.
4.
4. Tori Wilson. Tori Wilson is a female wrestler who was part of WWE for a number of years, but was never able to lift championship gold, or be part of something memorable throughout her entire time there. Whilst other women on the roster were part of championship matches on a regular basis, Tori was seen as eye candy, and mostly only used in bra and underwear matches, or evening gown competitions with many other women who were seen the same way. Tori is a former Playboy cover girl, so it seems that she gave herself this reputation. Despite leaving WWE a number of years ago, Tori still returned for the missed WrestleMania Battle Royale back at WrestleMania 25, and has remained in incredible shape, so there should be no reason why she isn't one of the 30 names that WWE wants to put in the hat when it comes to his historic event.
3.
3. Lita. Lita retired from WWE more than a decade ago, but is still considered to be one of the best wrestlers to have set foot in a WWE ring. Lita is also a WWE Hall of Famer, and someone who has been an integral part of the women's revolution as well, since she returned to WWE to commentate on the inaugural Mae Young Classic back in the summer. She has been part of a number of kickoff shows over the past few years as well as an ever-present member of WWE's broadcast team. She was also at WrestleMania 32 to unveil the new Women's Championship, when WWE said goodbye to the term divas and the pink butterfly belt forever. It seems that Lita has been stuck on the sidelines throughout this history-making process, so it's time that WWE allowed the former four-time women's champion to step in the ring one more time and show the new crop of women how to make history once and for all.
2.
2. Ronda Rousey. The former UFC champion has been rumored to be joining WWE ever since that appearance back at WrestleMania 31 in 2015. Over the past 2 years, the speculation has become stronger as Ronda Rousey is now reported to have signed a contract with WWE, and is training at their performance center alongside fellow four-horsewoman Shayna Baszler. Rousey was a person that WWE obviously signed for a moment like this, as a number that could be drawn at any point. She could go out and clear any ring, and then go on to easily win this match, which is why it is thought that the former MMA fighter will definitely be part of this match. Whether or not the fans will react the way WWE hopes they will is a completely different story, though. It is thought that Rousey could well be one of the dark horses when it comes to the first ever winner of this battle royale.
1.
1. Trish Stratus. Anyone who thinks that WWE could possibly have an all-women's Royal Rumble match for the first time without including arguably the greatest female wrestler of all time has obviously not been watching the product for very long. Trish Stratus is still considered to be one of the greatest of all time, despite WWE's current crop of women being given the opportunities that she never had. Trish may have retired from the company more than a decade ago, but it seems that her 7-time women's championship reign record is still intact, and she is still considered to be one of the standard bearers for the division. As a mother and a wife now, it seems that Trish hasn't made a return to WWE since her Hall of Fame induction back in 2013, but this would definitely be a worth appearance for one of the greatest female wrestlers of all time, to make history one more time.
Yeah.